I thought it was the right time to speak with you when I kind of started seeing that you were sort of coming up to the light and like, oh, I think she's ready to be interviewed.
I definitely, I think I'm glad you sort of mentioned that. I definitely think that, if you would have asked me this about 2 years ago, I probably would have said no. If you probably would have asked me 10 years ago, I probably would have said no. So now seems like it's time. It's time to start popping off at the mouth and throwing my hat into the ring of the fitness atmosphere, so to speak. I don't know how to describe it.
What made you choose, or I think the question is, what made you decide now is the time?
I think a lot of things. One, medical training was done. So the last 10 years has been, go, 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 crazy shift work, 24-hour call. Like I just felt like I was barely surviving. My main goal was just to do right by my patients and really make sure that like whatever it is, um, they came first. And I knew that, and I was unmedicated at the time. Well, we get in that later. So my hunger was always a huge issue. And so once I had finally ended, it was sort of like another 2 years of just trying to unpack and decompress because you spend the last 10 years of your life like, I'm going to get to this point. It's going to be amazing, like all these things. And then you graduate. And it was also during COVID when I had ended. So everything was a little
Mm.
strange and up in the air. And so I had, towards the end of fellowship, I had started to gain a whole ton of weight for various reasons. And I was just in a really negative headspace.
Yeah.
I didn't know who I was. Like, was medicine right for me? Did I make the right decision? Oh my God, I'm like, my joints hurt. I'm 190 pounds at 4'11. Like, I hate the way I look. I'm miserable. I've attracted misery around me with some of my social circles. And so I just had to unpack all of that and take care of my own crap before I could, feel like I'm actually in a good spot to like talk to people, if that
Yeah,
makes sense.
I totally feel like this is a huge thing when you're going through so much shit and so much challenges, and suddenly you kind of feel like maybe now is the right time, but in the back of your mind, maybe was that the idea that maybe if I share my struggle right now, so many more people may relate? Because I am very sure that you weren't the only one going through so much shit and so much struggle at that point. But I guess that is also maybe you just don't feel comfortable sharing those things. You're more private, more intimate.
Yeah, I also just didn't know how to unpack it. Like I'm not the most, I don't feel like I'm the most articulate person at times. And so to still have those emotions kind of swirling, like I just don't necessarily want to say something that I'm going to regret a couple months later. Like, I almost feel like there are some times where I will see people who, people use social media for different avenues. People will use it as sort of their own personal journey and will sometimes say things like start popping off at the mouth and then a couple months later feel like, well, maybe that wasn't so right. Like a lot of times, people will start getting into fitness and then decide to jump into a bodybuilding competition or a figure competition to get really lean, maybe not do so well, maybe not feel so great in the end, and then, start poo-pooing on the whole idea of like, all bodybuilding's terrible, all bodybuilding's bad, we should never do bodybuilding once again. And then a year later, it's like, well, I was going through some stuff, and it's like, yes, we can see that. Like, I know you meant that, you didn't mean to say that, but in the moment, I could see why you would write something like that.
I totally understand that. And I think one of the interesting things about your story maybe is just going back to what led you to sort of start looking for change. Because you mentioned that there were a couple of things that you were having at that time. You were doing your studies, your residency, like COVID. all those things. Obviously, you had a huge appetite. How would you describe that appetite, and how would that really affect the rest of your life? Because sometimes that could be just the one thing that is just the main focus of, like, if you don't eat, you don't function. If you don't have meals really planned, and like your life is surrounded by just the thinking that you need to have everything ready
Yeah.
and set up for your food. Like you live for eating, not necessarily the other way around.
Yeah. My hunger has always been a thing. Even as since from as little as I can remember, I was always, the girl. So I had a girl who lived next door to me, and I was always just the poster child for the Clean Plate Club, right? So, and she was. I noticed early on, I met her when I was 2 years old. I just noticed that she was smaller than me. And I remember at some point I realized that I was 20 pounds heavier than her. I didn't think much of it. Like I didn't feel like, oh, I'm fat, but I did notice that like I am physically bigger than her. And we were about the same height growing up. And I just remember always, she would always be a very picky eater, and I would just, eat everything. I would eat the entire, my plate. And her mom would always just sort of look over and be like, oh, you should, be like Crystal. You should finish your plate. Cause back in the 80s and early 90s, like that whole mentality of like finishing your plate, the Clean Plate Club was a thing that parents used to instruct their kids. And it really wasn't, anytime I tried to diet, even in high school, I did all the dumb fad diets, but I just always felt like the amount of mental bandwidth that my hunger would take up was just, it would not allow for me to function. It would not allow for me. And the the closest I could come up with it is, people in bodybuilding prep. But the difference between that and where I was physically, I was not any close to being stage lean, not even close. And I'm not trying to lose an insane amount of weight. It's like 5-10 pounds, like at, on average, my set point, I guess, if you could say, is somewhere between 150 and 160 at 4'11. We're not really like, just not even close to, being like shredded to the bone. But even very small margins of moving away from that range would just lead to such disastrous results that, very foolishly in undergrad, I just decided to say, screw it. Like, I really wanted to be the best chemist. I wanted to get a PhD in chemistry. And, since I suck at dieting, like, why not? I'm just going to go all in, and I'm going to just do whatever it takes to get to, to be the top student, to get every single research fellowship money, to be the top person, to have, to be at the top of the grading curve. And that ended up getting me to 4'11 and about 200 pounds. So I just, decided that like I was just going to sit, study. I was going to be in the lab. I was going to eat takeout. I like went the complete opposite direction of like, fad dieting. And now I'm going to do nothing but, eat the standard American diet. Everything was packaged. I had nothing, no fresh vegetables. It was, looking back, estimated about 4,000 calories. Like, so, went through wild, afterwards, I realized that, I can't, this is not sustainable. Like, I'm an adult. I should probably figure some sort of happy medium out. And it took me I quit smoking cold turkey. That was actually pretty easy for me, at least. And it took about maybe a year or two to get vegetables into my diet on a regular basis, just getting used to the taste, because your taste buds, when you quit smoking, like all of a sudden, your taste buds change. It took me like a couple of years to just get my cardiovascular fitness back into the swing of things, to where I felt like I could just exercise consistently a couple times a week. And it wasn't necessarily weight training. It was elliptical, started off walking 10 minutes on the elliptical, and building that back up. So by the time, this was around 2009, I was in grad school, and I decided that cardio just wasn't my thing. Decided to pick up weights, and then kind of from there, fell in love with powerlifting and resistance training and being strong. And so I kind of shifted my mindset from just cardio to weight training. But it really wasn't until 2012 that I tried to diet again, and it was so bad that I failed my first semester of medical school. I failed anatomy by a couple percentage points, and in 2012 I decided, I was like, and this was, I did a lot of things wrong back in the looking back on all of that stuff, but I just remember my hunger just being so out of control that I would just lay in bed, and it would be 4 a.m, and I just, like, all I could think about was how hungry I was and how miserable I was. But I just thought that, like, wow, this is what it's like, and I'm just gonna have to try harder, because I'm just not, like, whatever's going on in my brain just isn't working. And that was probably the last time I dieted for the next 10 years, was like that experience in 2012. And I just was trying to work, just being okay with being 20, 30 pounds heavier than I am right now. And I just was never okay with it. Like, I tried to go to therapy. I tried to journal. I erased my social media so I didn't have to look at any fitness influencers. I thought I did as much of the, like, inner work and inner peace as I could. And I finally just came to the conclusion, what if this is something that I truly want? And am I a bad person for wanting this? And is there something wrong with me? I think I spent, like, the last 10 years of my life, like, as med school was happening, it was like, what is wrong with me? Like, why am I like this? And why can't I be happy with this? And it really wasn't until the last couple of years that it's just that I sort of just made peace with who I am and what I want in life. And if I'm not hurting other people, and I'm pretty honest about where, what I want and how I'm going to get there, I don't, what is the harm in wanting to, look a certain way to a certain extent, right? Like, I'm not trying to, win Miss Olympia, Bikini Olympia here or anything like that. I'm just trying to be comfortable in my own skin. And I feel like I've finally gotten to that place. I don't even know if I answered your question. I just went on a really long tangent. So I just
okay,
popping off at the mouth. So
I didn't want to interrupt. So I did.
Yeah, no.
And so one of those is when you actually try to diet the first time, what was the experience, and what do you feel like there was something holding you back? Because you mentioned that you had been sort of thinking over the past 10 years, try to figure out whether there was something wrong with you. Why were those thoughts coming to you? Like, why you just don't go and say, well, I want to become leaner, and I just do it? What was holding you back by then?
It's always been my hunger. It's always been my hunger. And anytime, and it was never like, I think, yeah, for I would say 90% of it is my hunger. I think 10% of it is, during COVID, I just sort of fell apart emotionally, trying to do everything all at once and trying to be a rock star in fellowship. And I just, between studying, I kind of reverted back to my old habits, academic habits, and fell into a plate of chicken tenders and Texas toast and French fries. But but it's always been my hunger. And even when I was eating clean and when I was trying to, do all of that stuff, nothing worse than eating chicken breast 3 cups of broccoli, rice, and your stomach is just really full. And you're like, I'm still hungry and I'm actually still gaining weight and I can't stop myself. Mike, at one point, actually created the hunger diet templates like back like 7 or 8 years ago, because he actually just hadn't seen that before. It seemed like a lot of people after they diet, you know, you are reverse dieting or you're in this maintenance phase, and it's like it's a little difficult, but it's doable. Like if you just hold off on it, if you just hold off on the tasty foods and you wait 3 weeks and, you bring your calories back up to maintenance, like everything should be all honky dory. And it was never like that for me. So I always felt like this big effing loser because I was like, why is this transition from dieting to maintenance seems so seamless? And here I am, like, he like described it as like I would get this look in my eyes post diet, and it was just like I just couldn't stop. It didn't matter if I had if you put a bowl of oatmeal in front of me, I was going to eat it. It didn't matter if you put dry chicken in front of me, I was going to eat it. It was like this glazed, like, zombie mode. And it was, yeah, like I just couldn't be stopped no matter what.
What do you attribute that huge hunger? Like, what is it for you when you think about huge appetite, huge hunger? What is happening internally that is driving that crazy hunger that when you compare yourself to someone else, it's like, yeah, there's something different in my whether it's my genetics, it is my physiology. Is there something that is driving that hunger that when you compare yourself to the regular person that they just eat a normal meal and they are full and like you see them like, really? Can I
Yeah.
you?
Yeah, no, it really wasn't until I had gone on. So full disclosure, I'm on semaglutide medication. I have been on other medications for weight loss, prescribed by my physician, and had failed at all of those. Wellbutrin, Contrave, um, uh, I think I was on Topamax at one point, and it it wasn't until I had given semaglutide a shot that it became very apparent that whatever physiology, whatever hunger signaling is going on, it completely shut down after I started that medication. And it was like, I describe it as like waking up from waking up. I, my husband and I, we went to San Diego and went out to dinner. And I was like, okay, let's see how this goes. Right. Because every time prior to that point, anytime, like eating, it would just that feeling of like content was never there. It was always, I could definitely eat more, and I have to use my mental bandwidth to tell myself no. And sure, I can weigh my stuff out. I can portion my stuff out, and I definitely have portioned meals. Like, I have balanced meals, I have vegetables, I have fiber, I have a healthy amount of fats. I try not to diet quite often just because I don't like that feeling of hunger in general. But it really wasn't until I got Medicaid that I realized the extent of my own hunger. So, you know, um, to be able to go into a restaurant and have a really nice dinner and conversation and look at my husband in the face and not think about, I'm really hungry right now. I don't care what you're saying to me right now because I'm really just waiting for the food to get here. And to be able to eat and talk and be mindful and be present. And whatever, if people are gonna criticize me for saying I'm weak, then whatever, go for it. I just don't care anymore. It was kind of amazing because I've never experienced that in my life, where I've been able to have like a conversation over dinner and be able to look at my plate and look at my glass of wine and be like, you know what? I didn't finish this, and it's actually okay. And I'm actually feeling satiated right now. And I just remember looking at Mike and I was like, this is the weirdest experience ever. This is like, I've never had that. Like, I honestly can say I've never had that. And I just looked at him and like, I don't know what to think. Like, I'm okay. Like, I don't need to finish this. And I'm really confused and really excited and really scared about it, because like, is this what was wrong with me for the last, 40 years, 41 years? Is my biology, that messed up that I need medication? And sure, I'm okay with that. I'm okay with saying that yes, the answer is yes, because it has given me a net positive in my life that I am just never, I'm eternally grateful for. But I had those other habits in place. Like, let's not get this twisted, right? Like, I had all the like habits of cooking, meal prep, consistent resistance training, getting cardio in on a regular basis, like all of that stuff really has, all of that adds up. And this is just another tool in the toolbox to help mitigate hunger.
Let me ask you something. So when you were trying, or when you started your, like, let's say, to decide to do lose that weight that you had put on that period of time when you were studying,
Mm-hmm.
do you feel like you tried every tool in the toolbox when it comes to hunger management and satiety? Let's say, well, if I'm gonna eat out because I'm so hungry, I'm not present, I'm gonna eat a meal before I actually go. So I actually less hungry and I can be more present. Or like one thing that I talk to my clients a lot is, let's try to be
Mm-hmm.
and think about the outcome, or what is the purpose of that event or that situation.
Mm-hmm.
If you're going for a dinner anniversary, what is the outcome of that? Is it the purpose to just eat? Is it the purpose to spend time with your loved one, your husband, and create memories? So what do you want out of that? So if you want to make the most out of that and you're scared of binging, or just making the food as just the big protagonist of the scene, and the being there, what can you do in order to mitigate and reduce the likelihood that that is going to go wrong? So would you eat something before going to that place, so at least your hunger is much more settled and you can slow down, just wait for the food, just even taste certain things, share some plates with, when you're so hungry you would not share anything, like this is my food, that's your food, like you separate that. And or like even just thinking about, well, I eating, just you mentioned something about introducing vegetables at some point, you didn't have that in the past. I don't know, like all the hunger management strategies and tools that you can think of, would wouldn't that have worked for you, or not even implementing those strategies would work for you?
So for me personally, yes, the answer is yes, because I've worked with my previous physician, and also I've hired actually a whole bunch of coaches to kind of help me along the way, both from RP, some from not RP, who are also really great. So I've had a wide variety of working with, different approaches, and also really taking the time to learn about what choosing foods, because we were starting from the bottom, right? Which kind of carbs, which kind of, just even having vegetables. And I do, yes, the short answer is yes, I do actually bring a lot of protein bars, mostly, and then ready to drink shakes. So I will tend to keep those in my purse. And then we'll often try to have that before we head out, or even, keep it in the purse. And then depending on the commute, how long it's going to take to get there, have it like right before. Yeah. So, having, let's see, chewing slowly, taking, making sure you take sips of water in between, and not, shoveling everything in all at once. So all of that, I feel like over the last 10 years, especially with the help of, working with nutrition and lifestyle coaches, has been a huge plus, leading up to my decision to get on, try this new medication.
Sounds like semaglutide kind of made a huge shift in your life, as you mentioned. And I'm interested to hear now, like there's a lot of information around this weight loss. Like it wasn't made to be a weight loss medication in the first place, but it kind of turned out to be one of those and sort of like really effective. Now,
Mm-hmm.
what is it about semaglutide that is that effective to control appetite? And how do you even get it if you're not a diabetic?
So in the United States, it's FDA approved for weight loss. So the you just because the insurance companies don't necessarily may or may not cover it depending on your insurance coverage. So I pay out of pocket because I technically, my insurance does not have whatever stipulation that covers obesity medications. So I pay out of pocket. If you have a diabetes or even in some insurance companies, I've even seen it covered with a pre-diabetes diagnosis. So that means, you pay either $0 or some really cheap amount, like $30 for each medication. It's about somewhere between $800 and $1,000 for a month's supply, for that medication. So,
What is it about semaglutide that makes it so unique and so special? What does it do in your body?
yeah. So the semaglutide is the special one. So the GLP-1 agonists have been around since the early 2000s. So this actually isn't the first in the entire class of GLP-1 agonists. So the first one to come out was 2005 with exenatide, which was the first GLP-1 agonist. So the GLP-1 agonists really help in that you have GLP-1 receptors in your brain that sort of help manage the feeling of satiety, which is sort of the big draw to it. And so with every single GLP-1 agonist that has sort of come down the pipeline, so there's been exenatide, there's been liraglutide, and all the other tides, from 2005 up until this semaglutide was out, FDA approved, at least in the United States, in 2017 or 2019. The effect on satiety has just been much higher. But also with the weight loss, with the obesity doses, the difference between the diabetes dose and the obesity management dose is that the obesity management dose, at least in the studies that they have used, are much higher than what typically would be used in diabetes management. So a lot of the studies, for semaglutide, have been such that the amount of weight loss that people have been able to achieve on that, compared to the older medications, has been a huge, it's just, we're talking about, somewhere between, 15, kilos, popping off at the top of my head. But also gosh, I was actually just about to, the other thing too is, the other point is that somewhere around 2017 is when they were able to make it such that the injections were longer acting. So the original GLP-1 agonist that was approved for weight loss, which was Saxenda in 2014, that was an everyday injection. And to try and sell people on an everyday injection for even diabetes management is actually pretty tough. And if you look at the studies for weight loss for Saxenda, it was all right. It wasn't anything to sneeze at. Semaglutide was the one that really drew people's attention when they realized how much weight people were losing on the medication after, 62, 52, 62 weeks.
Is it possible to explore with you a bit more what is the actual mechanism of how it works in your, like, is that an injection, right?
Yes, it's a once a week injection.
And how does that work in terms of your, like, the connection to your gut, your hunger? What does it physiologically do once that is injected in your body?
Once that is injected into your body, the receptors, which part of your brain that controls hunger, I'm actually not entirely all that well versed on. So, really they had really just point out the fact that we have receptors in our brain and it affects satiety. So
Okay.
yeah.
And what sort of major secondary effects or things you experience when you started taking that medication? Do you have any, like, dizziness, vomiting, nauseous, diarrhea, gastric upset, anything like that?
Yeah, the most common side effects for all of these medications are nausea, vomiting. Vomiting, yes. Nausea, yes. But those medications or those side effects went away after the first couple of months.
Okay. Now,
Oh.
talk to me. I think you have been asked this question so much, like you go, okay, let's see.
No, 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 no.
Um, but let's talk more about what is your day to day, like, does that look for you in terms of your commitment to training, diet, exercise? Now that you have gone into a relatively good rhythm with your nutrition, your diet, you're no longer studying, you finish that off. Now you do work as a physician. What do you do on a daily basis?
Yeah, no, that's a great question. And I never get tired of answering it. So I wear many hats, so to speak. I do a little bit of telemedicine, private practice in primary care, sports medicine. So most of my day-to-day stuff is actually more project management, non-clinical work. So I do a lot of project management stuff over at Renaissance Periodization. So their majority of my day is organizing and managing different projects, talking to different contractors, talking to different departments, trying to get things organized for bigger products and projects. And then part of my day, I would say maybe about an hour or two, is really for telemedicine, kind of answering questions, follow-ups, trying to, schedule, calling, other practices, sending out referrals. And then also, the other half of that is still also trying to do, I still coach clients, which I think is really, I feels kind of weird because I have a private practice. So I feel like there's definitely some gray area in there between, what I consider just a coaching client versus somebody who's part of my practice, because I think there's always going to be that. I feel like there's always going to be that physician patient sort of relationship because of, my training. And then, a couple times out of the year, I will travel for work. I also do cover events for US figure skating. So I do that about twice a year, but that's, really a week at a time. So most of my day-to-day stuff is, sitting in front of a computer, having Zoom meetings, organizing stuff in, things in Linear, and providing people with updates.
That's awesome. And when you say coaching, do you mean coaching as a coach, like an online nutrition coach, or is it more like powerlifting, or what specifically do you coach on?
So I don't necessarily do any powerlifting programming, mostly general population, mostly people who want to, I think, at various levels of nutrition and training. So, for some people who've been sort of lifting recreationally for some time and are really looking for, I feel like everybody really wants, some sort of aesthetic changes or to get healthy, whatever that means to them, because that all, always is, it's always different from person to person. But I think, yeah, for the most part, it's just a general population. And I hate saying that because even in the online fitness space, that general population is so vast, like who, so.
Yeah. Okay. Now, talk to me about your, like, how do you meet Mike? What happened? Was that like 5 years ago, 3 years ago? How long have you been married? And how was that support when you, or like that communication,
Mm-hmm.
because he's such a knowledgeable person, and maybe just trying to navigate your struggles and like trying to find the best strategies, because I do that with my husband. Like if he's struggling with appetite or his diet, I want to give him the the best ideas and the best alternative. I want to try to coach him, but he doesn't let me. So it is like a little bit of a pull and push, and like I want to give you the best that my knowledge can give you and the
Yeah.
support, but it's like he needs someone else that is not within the relationship. So it's like, talk a little bit about that.
Yeah. I met him in 2013 or 2014. I met him on Facebook. I was Facebook friends with a mutual power lifter, Jordan Wong, and I saw a picture of Jordan Wong and Mike at the Arnold in 2013, I think. And I remember commenting on it. I remember liking the picture and I was like, oh, he's kind of cute, like kind of nerd with glasses and a backpack on at the Arnold. Like he just seemed like a jacked nerd. So we started talking online and kind of just sort of went from there. So I think we got married. Gosh, 2018 or 2019. Wow. Once you hit 40, it feels like time just sort of, my whole concept of time is just all sorts of out there. So we got married in like either 2018 or 2019, I think. We had a we had a couple we had a like his parents threw us a wedding and then we got married in at the town hall in Philadelphia. So we've been married for a couple of years. We were long distance for a couple of years and then moved in together, and then have been together sort of ever since. So yeah, no, it's tough. And I remember I remember very early on, one of the big things I told him when we first started talking was, I'm never going to look like a figure model. I'm never going to look like a bikini model. I love lifting weights regularly. So that's my hobby. Like, and I'm not going to give it up for a relationship. And I value being healthy and having an active lifestyle. I'm not really into aesthetics. So if you can't be into me, also I'm in medical training, so I really won't be available for the next 10 years. So if you're not really interested in that, like take a hike down the road, because I just at my wits end. And surprisingly enough, he seemed all right with it. I just I was just laying it out there on the table, like, because I I don't know what dating's like nowadays, but I just remember back in the day, it was just kind of awful. You know, guys are mean. You know, people will break your heart. People will say mean stuff, or, you know, you're too career obsessed, or, you know, you're not thin enough, or what, some, you know, some random BS. So I was just like, here it is. Take it or leave it, buddy.
Yeah. Don't waste
So,
time.
don't waste any time. Um, yeah, I remember having some really early conversations with him about, you know, diet culture, aesthetics, like, because I remember I was struggling very early on, in our relationship. Not necessarily, and it was nothing he said or did. It was really all what was, you know, what I was feeling, and just trying to flesh out, like, am I really a good person? Am I a terrible person for wanting things? Um, and so I think, you know, he always did his best to, you know, just be very kind and very gentle, and really asking some leading questions to really make me think. And versus, you know, him telling me like, oh, this is stupid, or oh, like you're dumb, or whatnot. So I always really appreciate our conversations, because it never feels like that. Um, I have in the past hired other, you know, RP coaches to kind of help with my diet and my training, you know, just to kind of, um, you know, get a feel for somebody else. Also, one of the RP coaches was also a physician. So I kind of felt like, you know, there was that added bit of like where I can complain about my day to day life. I'm going to pay you so you can listen to me complain about how awful med school is. So, but nowadays, you know, I think we're always on the same page. We're always on the same team. Um, you know, making sure that uh, the I feel like the train he still programs my training. You know, and I uh don't really, you know, think much of it. I mean, it's great. I'm appreciative for sure, but like, I guess I just don't have any, I guess there really hasn't been, you know, I guess I haven't really struggled a whole ton, you know, and he's always really been really supportive. And so you know, I'm always really thankful for that. So,
That's awesome. No, I think it was just a bit of a curiosity of how
yeah.
how that kind of like situation with your hunger, and I don't know, that maybe could be something that was something that Mike was trying to somehow help you navigate through.
Yeah. Oh yeah, no, he definitely, I mean, he even like you know, I feel like I was the source of inspiration for that product that he created, the hunger diet templates, where basically it was a much higher protein, much higher amount of vegetables, and you know, keeping the carbs moderate. And you know, because he had real like it was, you know, his best way of like trying to help me, and I tried it, and I was the beta tester for it, and I still like did not, you know, didn't quite work out. So it's hard. You know, and I think if you asked him, I think he'd say it's hard to watch me, you know, watch me struggle with that, because it was like the one thing that like meant so much. Um, you know, to really struggle with that and try and figure out like, what am I not being mindful enough? Am I not, you know, am I not drinking enough water? Am I not pausing with each, you know, bite? Am I not like praying? I don't know, like, do I need to sacrifice, you know, a lamb on the full moon, and, you know, do a dance? I don't know, like, do I need to journal more? Do I need to more therapy? Uh,
Do you feel like you have any sort of like things that are related to unconsciously something related to trauma, or something from your childhood that may have still gotten in the way for you to get better or do things better? Or do you think it was just purely physiological and just was the hunger? Or was there something else in terms of, well, I always felt that I was the like the bigger person in the room. I always was like, Like you always felt like the little off amongst your
Yeah.
things like that, or what was there something that emotionally was kind of dragging you down?
Um, really, I think there are a lot of things that I don't think there was any one thing that kind of sunk into, you know, that I could really put my finger on. I think there were just a lot of hard lessons that I had to learn along the way. If I could go back into time and tell my former self a couple of different things, it's, early on, going to having, thinking about proteins, carbs, and fats would have probably been helpful, because looking back at what I used to eat growing up, into high school and even until, gosh, 2010, 2011 is when I kind of started to learn about nutrition. Eat some freaking protein every now and again, because all of my diet was just mostly carbs, plus or minus like a vegetable or two. Um, Also resistance train. I remember doing a crap ton of cardio, especially when I was doing Weight Watchers, because you get extra points for doing X amount of cardio. Like if you did, 2 hours of cardio, you would get X amount of points. Obviously, I wanted more calories, so I would spend, hours on the, elliptical. Looking back, that was pretty short sighted on my part. But such is life. But yeah, I really can't think of anything, too much that would really have, like, kind of set me up for that sort of thing.
What is coming for you? Like, what are your some of your future projects for you now? Like where you are right now, is there anything that you're planning in the future in terms of like competitions, like powerlifting competitions, or like I don't know, becoming a mom, or I don't know, whatever.
I think coming up, I would love to start competing in jujitsu. I think, next year, really kind of shifting that focus from, building muscle, kind of looking a certain way for a photo shoot or for marketing assets or whatever, getting back into Nogi and, start putting myself out there. It's just I love all my physique competitor friends, no shade at all, but man, I started, like, a couple reasons. One, I have loose skin. It just doesn't really, and then also I started thinking about the cost of these competitions, and that's probably what the biggest thing that kind of turned me off is my cheapness is like, oh god, wow, these bathing suits cost how much for some Swarovski crystals? Oh my god. You're thinking about hundreds of dollars, even thousands of dollars for some of these suits that I see people use in the United States. The tanning, the makeup, for 15 minutes on stage. The other thing is I would like to, we're starting in the middle of working on an anatomy book for bodybuilding. That's already in the works. I'm probably going to come out with my own sports medicine book afterwards. So that's also going to be on the works. And I think that's about it. I think, on the back end, there's a couple other things that I'm trying to organize, but those are the main things. So jujitsu book and another book that's already in the works that needs to be finished up.
That's amazing. Well, you didn't mention anything of babies.
Oh
Sorry.
yeah, no, yeah, sorry. Aunt. I'm gonna be the cool aunt. Cool aunt. You know, that'll spoil all the nieces and nephews. So
It's totally respectable, and I hands down for you that you've done so well, and it's been like a very huge roller coaster for you with your weight loss, with the challenges of getting out of med school, all of the things that you do on a day-to-day basis. So it is awesome that whatever you are happy with, that's what you need to be doing, and that's what makes the world better. So
Yeah.
let me ask you one more thing.
Yeah.
Um, so right now, if you could tell a like a bit of a small message to those who are listening today, what would you tell, what sort of message or takeaways would you give them to take away from today, in terms of managing their diet, their nutrition, especially if they're struggling with a huge appetite? What are the
Mhm.
best things they can do if the semaglutide is not necessarily an option for them?
Yeah, no, for sure. I was actually just having this sort of conversation the other day with somebody who I felt like is now in my shoes, where I was a couple years ago, especially during medical training, which already has its effects. So I will say that the biggest take home is to never stop resistance training. I think that's number one. I think that's what's really helped me get through um, residency, through medical school. It has helped me build the muscle that I need. It's helped me build strong bones. And now that I'm finally in a place where I can diet and recover pretty hard from dieting, the being able to reap those rewards, it is nice now, but in order to do that, I had to spend the years training hard and trying to recover as best as I could with what little sleep I had for the last 10 years. And the other things that I will say is, as long as prioritize protein and also prioritize eating fruits and vegetables to get that fiber in, whether or not, I think setting those habits in place is going to do you, is going to, really build you up for when it comes time to diet. Because I think the other part that I will say is that the sometimes it's really hard when you look on social media and you see people who do it all, the people who are like a neurosurgeon who competed in Olympia and could, handle all these things. You're talking about the 1%, the genetic elite. And I wish I, could say that everybody is, able to manage all those things, but I think Lane Norton really said it best the other day, the Instagram clip where he was talking about, this might be your season of focusing on only these things, right? And not every season is going to be a season where you can do all the things all at once. So, really appreciating the fact that like this season, I'm just going to focus on my career, and I'm going to focus on, doing the habits that is going to set me up for success, a year down the line, 2 years down the line, building that muscle, getting strong, and building those healthy habits. So that'd probably be, the couple of messages that I would sort of, leave people here with, that, the drug is just one tool in the toolbox. It's not everything, and it's not for everybody. So I don't want people to think that like it's going to be this, just because it was a revolutionary, tool for me personally, that it's going to be, it's going to work for everybody. It's not.
I know I didn't ask that before, but now that you're bringing that up, do
Mm-hmm.
you do you think there is a specific time where people should get off this medication, or like do you have like a period of time where you use it and no longer need it anymore and you just cease it, or are there like it's a package of like you have to have 12, 20 injections, like you have to complete the full thing, or can you just stop in the middle of the way and say, hey, I'm done, I'm pretty good where I am now?
Yeah, I think the thing about the chronic, weight management is that there really is no like you have to stop here or you have to do this forever. I think it's always going to be a discussion between the doctor and healthcare provider and you. Some people are able to stop the medication and seemingly do fine without it. Studies show that, not everybody gains all the weight back. Some people gain some of the weight back. So it is, I will say that if people really are feeling some type of way and want to come off of the medication, I'm a big fan of setting low expectations and then being pleasantly surprised versus, having high expectations and then being very disappointed, because I've seen that happen a lot. So I've seen people, I've talked to other physicians who do things a little bit differently. Sometimes they keep them on for a very long period of time. Sometimes people have realized that they may need to be on this medication forever. So is really no, hard and fast rule about what you should and should not do. It's always an ongoing discussion.
Would you say that this semaglutide is kind of like the new fat burner?
Ooh, the new fen-phen or something like that, because I know that there are people who are very concerned about how popular this is getting, and and rightfully so. There have been a lot of diet medications in the past that have been retracted or removed from the market because they come with very nasty side effects, such as cardiovascular disease with fen-phen. The um yeah, oh gosh.
Like, would you say that would you call it this is the likely the new fat burner? Like, it is actually the only one fat burner that actually works.
It's I wouldn't call it necessarily a fat burner, because it doesn't, because when I think of fat burner, I think of high amounts of caffeine, or I think of very stimulant type effects of as far as like fat burning abilities. With this, I think it's the new popular weight loss drug, but I wouldn't call it the new fat burner. No.
Yeah. Okay.
Just has a different like flavor to it.
Yeah, no, totally get it. I think I mentioned that because a really good number of people would use fat burners to lose weight.
Right, right.
So it is kind of where I was coming from in the
Yeah.
association. Like, if you're going to use a fat burner, it's because you're kind of using it to lose weight, lose body fat. So obviously, because these medications, semaglutide, have such a huge effect on appetite, that automatically by default helps you lose weight. And a lot of these fat burners that we see in the market have some form of appetite suppressant, which is very weak, but it has like I don't know, some sort of soluble fiber or something that once it is combined with water, like it sort of swells up in your stomach, and then you sort of are fuller for longer.
Okay.
But again, that's where I was coming from. Like,
Got it.
a good number of these products that are meant to be fat burners are actually intended for people to manage their appetite better and lose weight. So that's why I was asking, maybe this is like the new trend of the fat burner, like semaglutide is the one that actually works, not like the other ones.
Yeah, I haven't heard of too many, like, I guess other than like Metamucil, like actually taking straight up fiber. I didn't actually know that a lot of the supplements actually contain dietary fiber in it. Like, that's new to me.
Some could.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah. Like, there's so many, but I've
I
seen
know.
a couple that have some sort of product that will claim they have some sort of appetite suppressant, but when you actually look into the ingredients, there is nothing magical about it. It's just like some form of soluble fiber that will swell up once it's combined with water.
Right, right.
Well, Crystal, it's been amazing to have you. And
yeah, I'm an open book.
But it's been a great conversation, Crystal. I was very excited and still super grateful for you to be here today and just allocate this time for having this conversation. So thank you so much. And I'll talk to you very soon.
All right. Take care. Have a good one. All right. Bye.